Okay, just by way of review very quickly. What is a worldview? What is a worldview? Who can give me an idea of what a worldview is? Okay, how you view the world. Excellent. What does that mean? That's right, it's how we view the world. What do we mean by that? Yeah.
It's our vision of the world based on our upbringing, our culture, our religious beliefs, our family background, all the different inputs create a worldview.
Okay, excellent. It's the way that we see and interpret the world around us based on any number of variables. How we were raised, what our parents believed, our socioeconomic status, the country that we live in, what we think about some of the deeper philosophical questions when we think about those. All those kinds of things kind of come together to give you the filter by which you interpret the world around you. Okay? Everybody has a worldview, but not everybody has a Christian worldview. And so when we talked about the idea of viewing the world, we talked about the concept of wearing kind of these worldview glasses through which we interpret everything around us. And our goal as Christians, if Christianity is true, and that's one of the things we're kind of going to be alluding to today, if Christianity is true, which I believe it is, then it gives us the most accurate way to view the world as it is. Not as we would wish it to be, always, but as it is. So our job as Christians then is to be eye doctors, to come alongside people who are wearing a different set of worldview glasses and very thoughtfully and gently but firmly say, here, take those off for a second. Try these glasses on for size and see if it makes better sense of your experience. That's all of our jobs. That's not just my job. That's not just the Christian leader's job or the pastor's job. That is the mission for every professing Christian. That we what? Go into all the world and make disciples. The Great Commission. Okay? 1 Peter 3:15. Okay? That we should always be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks us the reason for the hope that we have. Always be ready means that we are cultivating this way of thinking and living in our own life so that when those conversations come up, whatever it might be, we are always ready to give an answer. That's why I'm so encouraged that so many of you keep coming to this series, is to put yourselves in a position to continue to be equipped to engage on these things. Now, when it comes to worldviews, and we just kind of touched on this just in passing, the most fundamental, the starting point revolves around this question or this idea. Okay? And I want us to allude to that in a second. By way of getting there, let me ask you this, because we didn't get into this discussion. What do you think is the most important verse in the entire Bible? See if there's any Bible scholars. What? John 3:16. Okay? God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that those who believe in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Okay? Salvation. All right? John 3:16. What else?
John 1:14.
John 1:14. What's that?
Christ became man and lived among us.
Okay, Christ became man and lived among us. Good. What else?
Love the Lord your God.
Sorry?
Love the Lord your God.
Okay, that'd be Matthew 22. Okay, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. The two greatest commandments, even Jesus said what? All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Everything revolves around those two. What else?
In the beginning, God.
Okay, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Good. Anybody else want to take a stab? John 1:1, which is?
Well, it's that same thing.
Okay.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God.
And the Word was God. That's right. In the beginning was the Word. Now, there are a ton of excellent verses. Ephesians 2:8 and 9, which talks about the difference between Christianity and all other religious systems, that Christianity is a gift of grace through faith. It's not by good works. That is a fundamental idea. I would argue, some may disagree with me, I would argue that the most important verse in the entire Bible is Genesis 1:1. Or we might say John 1:1. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Period. Either that's true or it's not. In the beginning God, or in the beginning not God. If that verse is true, then everything else, John 3:16, Matthew 22, the two greatest commandments, salvation, all these other pieces. If Genesis 1:1 is true, then all those other pieces of what we see in Scripture actually have their significance and their value. If Genesis 1:1 is not true, in the beginning not God, then they've got some value, but not nearly the value that they have by virtue of the fact that Genesis 1:1 says there is a God who created everything. That is a fundamental, in fact, that is the fundamental worldview starting point. And you remember that chart that we passed out. Does God exist or not? If the answer is no, then there's a lot of things that change. Then if the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, then there is some creator, which means we are created. Okay, challenges the notion of evolutionary theory. If their answer is yes, then there is some kind of higher moral authority, which challenges the idea that we are the highest moral authority and we can just kind of live as we see fit. There's any number of implications to this fundamental question, does God exist? Okay? So what I want to show you this morning is a quick clip from the bucket list. How many of you have seen the bucket list? Okay, many of you. The bucket list has Morgan Freeman in it, and it has Jack Nicholson in it. And Jack Nicholson is a CEO. He owns a hospital system. Very, very wealthy, but he's an atheist. Morgan Freeman works in an auto body shop. He doesn't have a lot of wealth, but he's portrayed as a Christian. He's not necessarily the full-blown evangelical Christian, but he's kind of the faith-based character in this. They're both in their probably mid-60s, and they both end up in the same hospital room. At first, they don't really like each other, you know, and certainly the CEO thinks that it's beneath him to even be sharing a room with another patient, you know. And yet, through this conversation and through their respective struggles with cancer, as they're dealing with this, then they come to form this bond. And in the course of their conversations, they end up writing what now has become this pop cultural phenomenon called what? The bucket list, which is everything you would want to do in life before you kick the bucket. Okay? So the way it works out is they collaborate on this list. Well, Jack Nicholson's character has all the wealth, so they have the means to actually go do this. So they decide to kind of take 6 months off of their real life and go and do these things, and they end up traveling all over the world. And it's everything from going skydiving and getting tattoos to seeing the pyramids, you know, and all kinds of different pieces that they put on their bucket list. Well, the scene we're going to see is from when they are flying across the Atlantic and they get into a discussion about the very question that we just addressed. So we're going to watch this here for a second, and then we're going to talk about it.
It's indescribably beautiful. Love flying over the polar cap, over the desolation, the stars. It's really one of God's good ones. So you think a being of some sort did all this? You don't? You mean, do I believe if I look up in the sky and promise this or that, the biggie will make all this go away? No.
And 95% of the people on Earth are wrong.
If life has taught me anything, it's that 95% of the people are always wrong.
It's called faith.
I honestly envy people who have faith. I just can't get my head around it.
Maybe your head's in the way.
Carter, We've all had hundreds of these discussions, and every one of them always hits the same wall. Is there a sugar plum fairy or not? And nobody has ever gotten over that wall.
So, what do you believe?
I resist all beliefs.
No Big Bang? Random universe?
We live, we die, and the wheels on the bus go round and round.
What if you're wrong?
I'd love to be wrong. If I'm wrong, I win.
Not sure it works that way.
Oh, you're not claiming you know something I don't.
I just have faith.
Let's unpack that. What do you see happening here in this conversation between these two guys? What's the fundamental idea that they're talking about, first of all? Right. Is there a God or not? Is there a God or not? And what, if you could kind of summarize some of the words and phrases or the perspective that Jack Nicholson's character had, how does he approach the whole question of, is there a God or not? Yeah.
He doesn't believe one way or the other. He just doesn't believe. He doesn't believe in the Big Bang. He doesn't believe in anything. He just doesn't believe. He can't wrap his head around it.
Okay. He said, I resist all belief. Now, I have these kinds of discussions with my skeptic friends all the time. One of the questions that comes to my mind is, as you hear him say, I resist all belief, do you think that's actually true? Okay.
Well, the fact he said, I wish I had faith to write, envy people with faith. Well, the truth is, he's got faith too, but he's just got faith in other things.
He has faith too. Give me some examples of how he has faith.
He has faith in his money, in his business. He has faith in things every day. He just isn't claiming to have anything spiritual.
He has faith in the fact that 95% of the people are always wrong, right? Think about this. Okay, now this is important for multiple reasons, okay? Part of the reason why I show video clips is so that we can become more discerning as we watch movies and television and media. Think about this conversation of faith in the context in which they're having it. Literally the context. Where are they? Flying. Right? Okay? They're flying over the polar ice cap. That's not insignificant to the question of faith. So when he says, I resist all belief, my mind immediately goes to, do you really? Because you believe that this plane will continue to fly over the polar ice cap, right? Now, where my skeptic friends will make a distinction is they want to make a distinction when it comes to faith and belief to religious faith and belief versus kind of generic real life faith and belief. They'll buy into that. But when it comes to religious, I'm like, oh, no, we don't have faith in that, right? Yeah, Scott. Okay, you're suggesting that he's avoiding the issue altogether. What evidence did you see of him avoiding the issue?
I think just the fact that he's just the thing he said about wheels go round and round. I mean, this is kind of this nonchalant attitude that life goes on, before you die, wheels go round and round kind of thing. It's just, he hasn't really put a lot of thought into it.
Right, because you can focus. You don't have to think about the deep things of life. Nobody does, really. There's enough going on in life. I can just watch reality TV all day if that's what I want to do and just not think about the deep things of real life. Okay, again, as we discern the media and the movies, what's the larger context? What's the larger storyline in this movie?